Want help to grow your business? Download Bryn, the world's first business advisor in your pocket. To find out more, visit bryn.ai or search the App Store today.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Family Business Matters. My name is Gail Crichton-Davis and I'm talking to Lloyd Russell to understand why family businesses are not just like a regular business. So Lloyd, we talk about this sort of thing all the time. Can you tell me what really is the difference between a family business and a normal business?
Yeah, it's a really interesting scenario, and it's probably an answer in three. And part of that is that most businesses have assets and wealth and a business. But family businesses have this other big thing called a family, and they can be 2, 3, 4 generations living at the moment, and there's different cycles that they've gone through. But I think the major difference, which is probably the third one, and that is they actually have a tradition, they have a history, they have a forward thinking to 30 years down the track, but they have a set of values, and if they're more than sort of 2 generations old, they certainly have left a legacy, and that is linked to how they actually think and their mindset. And that's a very different thing to any other business, because it's not a set of statements sitting on a wall. It could just be one thing that they're known for, and they're known for it through the different ages in the demographics. They're known for it in the community. They're known for it inside the business world. They're just known for it, and that's actually a competitive strength of that family business, and that's what makes family businesses so different. That there's a relaxation in knowledge that we are who we are, and we're here for a very specific purpose. They know their purpose very well. Yeah.
That's really true, because you see in a lot of organisations, the normal businesses, they've got their 5-year or 10-year strategic plan, whereas you've just said these guys, they're looking way into the future. They're looking to the next generation.
Oh, look, they could be looking. A long-term thinking is probably 25 or 30 years, because somebody in my demographic with children that are possibly starting to think about starting their own family, and so I'll become from a family of creation to a family of origin, and they'll be the family of creation, and that sort of stuff. But I'll be a grandparent. As a family business, I'll be a grandparent. So I'm thinking about what can I still do to help those grandkids get to school and those sorts of things. So I'm thinking, 20, 30 years from now, and to people that just sometimes aren't even born, and that's a different sort of thinking. And yeah, look, there's a whole question here of, but that's all about the family, and you've got to bring that into a practical sense, that what's good for the business, it's an old cliche, what's good for the business is very good for the family, because that's what you're here for. So you've got a different purpose, and so it's got to be a good thing. So you've got to bring it down to a 15-year, thinking, and that might be how you borrow money for capital. You've got to think about it from a 5 or a 7-year process, and then you come into where most corporations do their strategic planning. Mm-hmm. In a family business, that's almost business planning. In a family business, because we've had 3 stages of thinking before we get to 5 years. But yes, you have to monetize things. So you do have to look at your business from a weekly perspective, from a sales, from a marketing, and all that. So there's always exactly the same things inside a family business as there is for any business, but it's the fact that we're not doing it for anything else apart from handing over to another generation and another generation. And you take some German and Chinese and Japanese families, 20, 25, 30 generations old.
So how do they keep the purpose and the values going forward through each of the generations?
Yeah, it's a combination of factors, and has that purpose and direction and stuff changed? Well, yes, it has. It's evolved to suit the current business environment and the globalisation, if you want to call it that, and that sort of thing. But there's some really core things that probably have never changed right throughout the generations. And the old, another cliche is the apple never falls far from the tree, so to speak. And you can go through the family genome or the family tree and find out why they've changed, but they haven't really changed. I like to use the Packer family. Is Frank Packer was in print media and magazines and all that sort of stuff, and then Kerry, out with that, went into things like TV and all that sort of thing, and James has gone into casinos and all that. But let's peel that back, and they're really in property development and entertainment, and they do it darn well.
Yeah.
Sometimes these hidden values and hidden legacies are exactly that. They're hidden, and we don't see it. But the families know it, and other family businesses know it. And
so from the outside, it really does look as if they're tacking away, but they're actually staying very true to their purpose and their values.
Oh, absolutely. Wow. And other family businesses see that and just intuitively know it. They just and that's why family businesses talk to family businesses. With each other, and the more they can do that, the better. Generally speaking, the better off the families are as well. It's because the dynamics and the upsets and the challenges that they all face are all the same. The drivers and the nuances are certainly very different, but because there's no such thing as an off-the-shelf family business. They're very unique. There is no such thing as anything off the shelf in a family business, but they love talking to each other and they share very openly. Yeah.
So it seems it needs a certain mindset and attitude to be part of the family business. Do you see that transferable to the other businesses, or does it very much stay running separately?
Oh, Gail, you're asking me to become political, and I shouldn't do that. No, look, yes, it is. It is very transferable,
yeah.
Again, I can use any form of significant family that has evolved over time. You're absolutely correct. It's a mindset. It's an attitude. There's no formal theoretical definition of a family business, and that's because they are unique. You could look at it and go, okay, a theoretical family business should be that they're moving into the second generation or they're more than 3 generations older. But I know family businesses in certain areas where each generation is acting exactly like a founder, and they don't acknowledge the past openly. They don't acknowledge the past, and they'll hand over from the grave because that's their tradition. But I know startup businesses, that have a mindset that they're trying to set up, and it comes back to what we talked about earlier. There is values and legacy, because the values aren't, as I said, that 19 or 20 motherhood little words up on a wall. They might be 1 or 2 serious things, and that drives the legacy. It drives the legacy, but there is 2 other little things that is very difficult for other sorts of businesses, and it's called custodianship and stewardship. And family businesses that have had long tenures know that at this point in time, they are the custodian and the steward. So they have a role that they must control these assets in a way that's leveraged the history and will still be better and more pliable or more innovative for the next generation. And they're the steward of those, but they're also the steward of the family legacy and the family reputation and the community involvement and all that sort of thing. Yeah.
So whenever you see family businesses forgetting about being the stewards and the custodians and going to managers and owners, how do you help them remind themselves of what they're supposed to be doing?
Look, there's certainly no one size fits all, because it comes down to really how they were brought up and that sort of thing. But you've got to go behind the scenes and is it what the behaviour we're seeing, is it a right of entitlement or is it they're falling under the weight of expectations and obligations? And that can be at the incoming generation, it can be the incumbent generation, or it could be the owner who hasn't handed assets over yet because there's a particular reason why that needs to be done or whatever. And it just could be that there's been too much control. How do you get over it? You've got to find those deep-seated drivers. It can take 2 years of building trust and rapport with a family business to find those real drivers. However, at the end of the day, a family business does have a purpose, and they have a purpose in business, but they have a purpose in the family in business. And the purpose is, generally speaking, if they've separated, how can you bring those purposes back? Because then they are a common, I suppose, direction and a common cause for every generation. And it still comes back to that old cliche we talked about earlier, what's good for the business is good for the family. Because if the behaviour is being upset inside the business, we've got to focus on that. How do we get that behaviour out of the business and out of the family and that sort of thing? It's, again, it's, how deep's the well, how long's a river, how long's a piece of string. You can name a heap of them if you'd like to. There is no one family that is the same as the other, and it has to be unique to the family.
That's incredible. We're talking about different members of the family having different roles in the family. And how do you make sure that, and how do you help the families know when to hand over the role to the next generation and to understand that their role is important and they have different tasks and stewardship, ownerships at each point in time in their lives, in the life cycle of the family?
Yeah, that's a difficult one because we've got to understand how people react to a message. And a 25-year-old is going to react differently to a 75-year-old and that sort of stuff. And yes, every single person in that family does have a role, whether they're a 10-year.
To continue enjoying this presentation, download Bryn, the world's first business advisor in your pocket. To find out more, visit bryn.ai or search the App Store today.